Shalom, shalom. Welcome to another live here from the Kodesh Garden Homestead. This is Ben Israel checking in. Hope everybody is doing well out there. Hope everybody is having a blessed day, another wonderful Shabbat. If today was your Shabbat, if today was your seventh day. So it is already dark here on the homestead, and the moon is, I can see the moon, the partial moon out there, up in the high heavens. I'm not the familiar person with to talk about what time it's at in terms of the moon, but it's very interesting to know that Yah has given us instruction in terms of time and seasons. But let Yah be praised, that I may be able to understand those things, because the Gregorian calendar is not the true time and set apart thing of the Most High. Let Yah be praised. Welcome again to another live stream, as I mentioned, as we'll be looking to discuss the topic you see tickering across the screen: submission and the fear of. It's a very interesting topic. I've talked about submission in other scripture, other broadcasts that I've done, right? And it's very interesting. It's a very important word, but also a very frowned upon word by especially the ladies. So today I wanted to have a conversation about it, and just to reference a few things per my topic, and to see if we can shed some light and bring to some understanding of possible what are some of the reasons that have caused this resentment and has caused this rejection of the word submission. So I'm just trying to load up something here. Just trying to get something going. Bear with me a minute. Let's see. Let's see if this works. I'm just trying to get something here going, family. Bear with me a moment there. Alright. I just want to confirm the word submission. I'm trying to look up the word submission again to just confirm other related words regarding the word submit, because the word submit and the submission factor has been a really thorn in our side. I've been a bit of thorn upon us, to be candid, based on what we have been through, based on where we have gone. So I just wanted to find a relating word to the word submission. So I've posted a few questions. I put up a few questions in the description. I put a few questions in the description, which so it's funny, as you have seen, I put a few stuff in the description to say, why most of our women, and this is relating to our people, the scattered sheep of the house of Israel, our women, our people, our community. If any other people may find it edifying, or if any other people or nationality may find anything edifying about it, about this conversation, let Yah be praised. But it's directed to our people, about the so-called Negro, the so-called, you know, all the different names that they call us, but we know, the Israelites, our women, and and obviously our men as well, our people, right? So why most of our women, Israelite women, are most afraid of submission? I'm not speaking of guess. I'm speaking of facts. Speaking of asking the question. Speaking of my own relationship with my wife when we were at one point in our life in the past. Praise the Most High, we have overcome most of those devices of the enemy to break down marriages. And the the fear, the fear of submission, the fear of the word submit. When you say, I have spoken to different women in different aspects of my going out and things that I have to do on a daily basis. And sometimes we jump up a conversation. And I've asked I've asked women about her being married, wanting to be married as a matter of fact, and about the word submit. And it's an instant brick wall. It's an instant brick wall and an instant defense that is brought up. And one of the things that I get is I don't want no one to control me. I don't want no one to tell me what to do or what to say. And it's very funny. It's very interesting that if a woman belongs to a husband, if a woman is attached to a husband, if a woman is joined to a husband, per scriptures, and the man leave his mother and his father, cleave unto his woman, become one flesh. I am trying to still figure out. At least I've seen some things that could very well be the answer to the rejection of the word submit. When Yah says submit, when the epistle, the book says submit, men tend to be a little bit different when it comes, because we have to submit unto the Most High. Yeah, we submit ourselves unto our brothers as well. In the faith. But I see where women are afraid of the word submit, because most of these women out there want to be tyrants, and they are rebellious, and they are in ignorance as well. I think a lot of them are in ignorance why they take such a stance against the word submit. I see it's ignorance, and I think there are some factors that need to be considered as well, because us men have been affected in many ways as well. Because if a people is going to know where they're going, they need to know where they're coming from, right? We need to know where we are coming from. And we came from a place of highness, we came from a place of strength. We came from a place where we had our own mandate as a people. We came from a place where we have our own government, with the head of us being the Most High. Yeah. We came from a place where our people had their own inheritance. The men have their inheritance. So we came from a place where things were led by the Most High, yeah, as a head, in spite of kings being appointed in that land. Because we are the scattered sheep of the house of Israel. And we were taken, we were disobedient. We were disobedient to the Father. The Father has scattered us, and His word does not come back for it. So if we are people wanting to know where we're going, we need to know where we are coming from, right? And we need to understand what has happened to us on that journey. Because when I look around and I see us men, or men, and by extension, or women, and see the condition and the state that we are in, the condition and state of the household, of marriages, of families with children. It is very, it is very sad, and it's very hard rendering to see our people living in certain conditions, to see marriages is in chaos. As one sister I met years ago before I even came to the knowledge of the truth of who I am, when I was working, and she said she's an older woman, and she said, a lot of people who are married, they don't have a marriage, they're just existing. And it dawned to me at that time because, me and my wife were going through all the different obstacles of what the world tried to throw at marriages. And it dawned to me that, wow, that's such a profound statement. And I can see where she's coming from. Because people get a marriage and they say they're married, but they don't really have a marriage. They're married, but they do not have a marriage. Because if Yah is not in it, then it's going to be a lot of problems. And when Yah comes in it, then people, the husband, the wife, and the children have to fall in line, according to thus says Yah. You know what I'm saying? So as I traverse the streets here in the islands of Jamaica, and I interact with people and I have conversation with the different minds here on the island, as I have had in North America as well, I find that I really find that our people have been really broken. Our people are broken, both men and women. And when we talk about the topic here about submission, submission is not only for the woman, because us men, as I mentioned earlier, we have to submit unto the Most High, and we have to submit to our brethren one to another. So, but the woman that I see and I converse with, I see the challenges when you talk about submission. But I got a smoother word to relate, to reflect submission. If submission is such a hard word to digest, as I was looking at the Strong Concordance, the Strongs, I was looking at the word submit and other words that relating to the word submit. And there's one that I really like. It says humble, humbleness. So when the scripture says in the book of the epistle that Shaul wrote, Paul writes, says, "Wives, submit yourselves unto your husband." And let's say we change the word from submit to wives, humble yourself unto your husband. Us men, you have to humble yourself unto the Most High. I guess humble can be a choice word that is easy on the tongue or easy on the mind, because let's go back into a little bit of history of submit. We have been taught submission through force and subjugation and horror and turmoil by our oppressors. We have been forced into submission by the whip, by the gun, by the lynching. We have been forced into submission way back then, that you cannot be surprised if it is a post-traumatic slavery syndrome that is continuously striving upon us and keeping upon us in that regard when it comes to our submit. Because slaves, submit unto your master, and we were whipped, our fathers rather, we were whipped, and our mothers too, into that submission. So when I come to a lady, a woman in this time, and say, when you have your husband, you were supposed to submit unto your husband, it's like the instant brick wall and the defense that comes up. I can't be surprised if, because of what has happened to us, our mothers and our fathers way back during the oppression of slavery, by oppressors, beating us, maiming us, cutting off our hands or our feet, whatever they decide to do us, to make an example that we should submit. That means we don't even want to deal with that word anymore. So even when they know they ought to do certain things, and they are doing them, and a lot of women do the things that a submissive woman does. but it's not a word they like because of, you could definitely see the relationship with slavery. And it dawned to me a little while back when I had a conversation and I've been talking to my Isha about submission. And it dawned to me that, you know what, it's very likely that these women don't want to hear that word because they think it's oppressive. They think it belittles them. But I beg to differ. Humility, humbleness, submission is a beautiful thing when done correctly, when it's done in a manner of love. Because there's a scripture there, I don't have the scripture definitely with me. I'm going to try to paraphrase. I don't like to misquote scripture, but I'm going to paraphrase what Paul was saying about foods that people, he has ordained certain food and says, okay, you can eat beef and stuff. But people, if a person use something that is good to do evil, doesn't mean that that stuff that is good is not good anymore, or just that the person is evil to try to use something that was meant for good to do evil. So submission, humbleness, or we can change it in our vocabulary. Say, humble yourself unto your husband. Men, humble yourself unto the Most High. Yeah. Because when you humble yourself, you know that that person is above you. Because I've seen and I can understand the post-traumatic slave syndrome that is not just on our ladies, it's on us men as well. And that's why a lot of our men are reprobates as well. But we have men out there fighting the good fight, trying to take care of their families, trying to take care of their household, trying to take care of the wife or wives, trying to take care of their children, and do their best for their families. We have men out there keeping up the good fight. And these men don't have time to be out there. So to be highlighted because they are just at the grind taking care of their household. A few of them have surfaced. And it's very interesting. And it is something that we probably could look at and consider. If it's a slavery mentality and the beat that we got is the Willie Lynch law or the Willie Lynch and those type of syndrome that has been upon us to submit us into slavery and to submit to another master. So when a woman hear the word submit to your husband, you feel like, oh, he's master over me and he's gonna oppress me, he's gonna beat me, he's gonna tell me what to do. When things is done out of love, it's different from when it's done out of hate. Because the ones who ruled over us hated us. The scripture told us these things. And it's in scripture. Read Deuteronomy 28 for those who may have never read it. Excuse me. We want to change the narrative. If a man have his woman and he loves her and he is doing good by her and the children, why would that woman not want to humble herself under that man? Why would that woman want to, as the word says, submit under that man if he's doing what he ought to do? And if he's doing what he ought to do, it's in love because he loves her. So because of the twisted narrative of how it was forced upon us, we don't know how to differentiate what is good from evil. And when we hear a certain word, because it was mostly used in an evil way against us, even when the good is coming now, there is a defense against it. But I want to say to you out there, even sisters, if you ever run into this video, humbleness and submission out of love is awesome. Submission is a beautiful thing. Because a woman who is rebellious it does not get the respect from her husband. A woman who says her husband is not going to tell her what to do does not get the respect from her husband. A woman who is submissive unto her, who humbles herself, for another word, who humbles herself under her husband, you have so much authority and power, it's not even funny. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are a woman. Let's say a woman is rebellious and she is nagging and she doesn't want to submit. And there's contention with she and her husband. and this husband is looking to make a decision, a financial decision, an investment or whatever, purchase something that is a big ticket item. And there are some warning red flags out there. And the wife, who is that nagging woman and unsubmissive and without humility or humbleness to her husband, sees that danger and come to the husband and say, husband, I don't think you should make that decision because and I can tell you as a husband myself, the likelihood of that husband listening and taking that advice from that woman is very slim because she's always contentious and she doesn't humble herself unto him. But in the opposite, being a humble woman under her husband that reverence her husband, then what thing happen? If he's making a decision and he knows that his wife honors him, and she comes and say, honey, our husband, I think you should reconsider, or I don't think you should make that decision, he's more inclined to hear and heed what that wife says. Because this woman has humbled herself unto him, and she has given him a word. You'd be foolish not to take heed or look into it further. Because I'm speaking even from myself. I'm speaking even from myself. For myself as well. I would be foolish. For me. I would be foolish not to take heed to my wife. Because I've made decisions. I've made decisions all the time. And I'll be making decisions. And my wife has said to me before, my wife has nudged and I said, I take heed to my wife. Because she's a humble woman to me. She has humbled herself unto me. So her authority and her viewpoint is highly respected. Her authority and her viewpoint is highly respected when it comes to me and I run certain things by her and say, what do you think? I don't just ask her. So, and she's a humble woman to me. And doesn't mean that we don't have our differences. Doesn't mean that there aren't differences that may pop up. So because we are learning and we know the device of the devil, we learn how to rebuke it. Because we know this devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And we know the devil doesn't want marriages to work, especially our people. It's against one to break down and destroy our family. Okay? I went for the Sefer because I want to read the scripture as well. Because everything that we try to say here on this channel, has to be rooted and found in the word of the Most High. I try to refrain from a lot of opinions when it comes to the word and guidance. Because their words is true. This is a verse of the book of Sirach, Ecclesiasticus. And common regular people don't have these scriptures because they just work with the 66 book of the KJV. But if you do further checks, you realize that there are more than 66 books of the KJV. But this is the book of Sirach in the chapter 25, verse 26. It says, a woman that honors her man shall be judged wise of them all. Right? So that is a good thing about humbling yourself with your husband. Because a woman who is rebellious and contentious doesn't honor her husband. If she fights with him all the time, if he's trying to guide his family and she's always fighting against his word and instruction, the rest of the verse of chapter 26 tells you, but she that dishonors him in her pride shall be counted as the wicked of them all. Ladies, we don't want you to be wicked. We want you to be judged wise of them all. So we have to come out of our shell. And one thing that I tell sisters, even siblings as well, that and I tell my daughter as well, that Whether you're a professional, whether you're a homemaker, a wife that takes care of the home, whether you're a professional, a doctor, a lawyer, whether you are a politician, the president, the prime minister, whatever position you hold as a professional, it does not negate you should humble yourself unto your husband. Because man is the man and woman is a woman, regardless of your position that you hold out in the world. And what is very daunting to me, which I raised with my wife a while back, what is very daunting is a lot of time women will come and the family will come home and you have a husband who's trying his best. Things may not be perfect because there's only one that is perfect and one that is good, and it's the Most High. Yeah. And they would come and let me give you the example. So I saw this sister, she's unmarried, and I asked her about, getting married and submitting herself to her husband, and she immediately put up a defense. She want no man to control her. I know what is funny? When they go to work, the supervisors and the boss and the managers tell them what to do. Stop, go, come, what time, how to jump, how high. And they submit unto those bosses at the workplaces. And the one that shares the bed, and the one that shares the home and the kitchen, the one that shares the roof and the utensils in the home, the one that shares the struggle to know your pain. You would reject humbling yourself unto that person, or you humble yourself unto a person who doesn't care about you after you leave that work. They don't even concern much about you until you get back to work so you can do their job to make them money. Or is it money that you love while you submit? Let it not be. Because, and these are things that I've heard and things that I've seen. Don't let being a professional cause you not to humble yourself unto your husband. And your husband should be following you. Us men, we need to be following the Most High. Yeah. He has set out his laws, he has set his instructions. Us men, we need to follow. We have a part to do in it. Because as one brother mentioned in one of his broadcasts, one of his things that he was doing, his vlog. I don't need to be, as a man, if I know that my role is to do this, I'm going to continue to do it. I'm going to continue to do it. I'm going to continue trying to train my house and take care of my family. I am not going to be saying I will not do my part as a man because my wife is not waking up at certain point in the morning. My job is to continue to train, to try to be the chief servant of the house and do my part. Because Yah is ultimate and he's righteous. And he visited people. He visits people. So I'm not going to say because she not do that, I not do this. I don't have time to be saying because I know I have to do my job is. Peter asked Yeshua something and Yeshua said, go and feed my sheep. Don't worry about what I'm saying to this dude because this dude, I may give him a different instruction. You go and do what I ask you to do. So for me, I'm not too going to be caught up with the fact, but I know we want unity and we want to be able to have our house in order. So we have to work hard at that. But ultimately, do not sit back to say, oh, my wife is not doing that. She has to submit first before, as one of the brother that even mentioned that. Don't, should she submit first before you do your part? No, we think we need to do our part. We have to do our part because he has set us out to be, the head. And he has set us out in a certain position. So we need to lead from the front. Yeshua, lead from the front. Yeshua says, when my sheep hear my voice, they follow. He said, my sheep know my voice, and they hear it, they know me, and they follow me. Yeshua is leading from the front, You got to see the example of Yeshua Mashiach and follow. A husband has to lead from the front as well. That is just my view. And someone, may see him as if an opinion as well. But they see it as facts through scriptures. I lead from the front. I don't abuse physically or verbally. So my family should see the good fruit in me and follow. So, on the topic of submission and the fear of, is it the feminist movement? These are people are unique, you know. We were taken into bondage and we were oppressed. The slave master woman wasn't under bondage, but we tend to see her, or at least our women sometimes tend to see the ladies there as an example what they need to live up to. But no, because they take our culture. Remember, no, the first thing they did, one of the things they did, as you can see in history, they took our names. And if you don't have your name, you don't have connection to your father. So they changed our names and took it from us. So we have no connection to our history, to our ancestral line. We can't even trace back ourselves to know where we are from. But we have other ways to do it. But if we were to use the name, so now they start to give us names like Johnson and Brown. Those aren't names of an Israelite, of people from the African continent. Those are European names. Those are names of the Gentiles. So how come we have that name? They took our name, they took our culture, they took our language, they took our customs, and they forced us into the way that they want to teach us in some of their ways. So it's not surprising, family. This took hundreds of years for them to induct it in us. So a few of us are trying to break free from that spell. A few of us are trying to break free from that wicked act, even though it is us who has caused it upon our own heads by disobeying the Most High, by not obeying His words, His statutes, and His commands. But Yah is merciful, though. He's calling us out of the land where He has scattered us. He has called us out. He's calling us out from Cush, from Put. He's calling us out from all the lands and the isles of the seas, and the disperse of Judah from the four corners of the earth. He's calling us out. And we are hearing His call. Because we are coming out of this world. We are leaving this world and the things of it and living a set apart life unto the Most High. True to our brethren, true to our sisters, true to our wives, true to our husbands, sisters, true to our children, and teach them the ways that were taught to us by our parents. So we all have to humble ourselves, first under the Most High. I have to humble myself under the Most High first. And how can I be a good husband and a father if I'm rebellious against my Maker? Let Yah be praised. Let's not fear the word submission. So I'm going to change that word. Now, tickering across the street. Let me change that word that tickers across the street. The screen. Right? Because we want to try to find ways to heal. Oh, I spelled that word wrong. My apologies. Let me correct it. Yeah, I just had to correct that, or it was off. Yeah. So that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean, I just want to shed some light on this topic. I just want to shed some light because I realized that we have been fearful of what is righteous for too long. So, thus, families have been taken by the enemy, Ashatan, and his messengers, and been sieved like wheat. So, it's time now that we start to reclaim back our families and strengthen it and stop living in the house. People see a man and woman go in their home, but they're just not having any relationship. And bring back the Most High into your relationship. Bring back the Most High into your household. Seek Him. Read the scriptures to your family. Discuss the word. Talk to your sons and your daughters. Have conversation with your spouse. Let the Most High come back in the marriage and reject the devil so he may flee from your house and you. We all have to humble ourselves at some point. Because why would I go at work, humble myself before a boss or manager who don't know me, who can't make me a tea at night if I'm not feeling well, and then come back and in contention with my woman and being a reprobate man? Reject that. Because we are men, we should be men of Yah. We should go back to our true roles. Train our families back into the true role of the Most High instruction. Bring back our children. Win them back from the enemy. Create communities, build strong bonds with like minds in the word of the Most High. Have discussion and conversation because we're losing too much of our children, breaking down of our families, and I don't know because I know that a woman cannot raise her children by herself and do it effectively according to the word. It takes two to bring that child together, to create that child. So how that we think now it takes only one to raise that child? Foolish. It's not so. It wasn't from the beginning. It wasn't so. So let's go back to the Bereshit, the beginning, to learn, so we can find back our way back home in the path of righteousness. Let Yah be praised. There's much more that can be discussed about this, right? There's much more can be said, you know. Much more can be said about this topic of submission, or humble, and the fear thereof. Humility is a beautiful thing. So let's start to be humble and peradventure the Most High may see our humility and have mercy upon our household and our families and our relationship and plant His messengers to protect us in our homes and wherever we go. I won't keep it much longer than this. Um, you know, let Yah be praised. I'm just trying to bring a shout out word on this topic. There's much more could be said. Other people and other brothers and sisters have spoken about it. So, I'm just going to echo their voice as well. Let Yah be praised and certainly hope that and pray that you find this edifying. Go back to the scriptures to find back your path. And if you do find it anything edifying from this broadcast, let the Most High be praised and seek Him while He's able to be found. Again, this has been Israel checking out from the Kodesh God homestead here in the islands of Jamaica for another time. Stay safe and shalom and be strong in the Most High. Hallelujah. Shalom.